I would say to our athletes, you're there to compete. Do not risk incurring the anger of the Chinese government because they are ruthless.
We gaan naar China, naar onze correspondent Sjoerd den Daas. Sjoerd, jij staat vlakbij het stadion. Wat gaat China de komende uren laten zien?
Ja, hey, 稍等一会儿，我现在在新闻联播。Ja, we worden hier inmiddels, je merkt het, al weggetrokken. We zijn net ook al bij een ander gebied weggezet. Dus ik vrees dat wij later even bij je moeten terugkomen.
Dat
kan halen, ja.
Dat denk ik ook, Sjoerd. We gaan door met het volgende onderwerp. Ja. Dan gaan we inderdaad door met het volgende onderwerp. We gaan naar China, naar onze correspondent Sjoerd den Daas. Sjoerd, jij staat vlakbij het stadion. Wat gaat China de komende uren laten zien?
Ja, hey, 稍等一会儿，我现在在新闻联播。Ja, we worden hier inmiddels, je merkt het, al weggetrokken. We zijn net ook al bij een ander gebied weggezet. Dus ik vrees dat wij later even bij je moeten terugkomen. Dat kan halen, ja.
Dat denk ik ook, Sjoerd. We gaan door met het volgende onderwerp. Ja. Dan gaan we inderdaad door met het volgende onderwerp. Minister Jette.
All right, guys. So we got to talk about China, right? We got to talk about China, okay? Because they are currently hosting the Winter Olympics. And a lot of people got questions about that. Because people are asking, why in the world are we celebrating and hosting the Olympics in China when this country allegedly has some severe human rights violations currently going on at the moment, okay? If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, well, it is the alleged treatment of the Uyghurs, okay, which is a Muslim minority group in China. Allegedly, China is keeping them in concentration camps, using forced labor, not really treating them all that well, okay? Not really treating them all that well. So in recent times where athletes have been told to be woke, right, to speak out against injustice, to make a statement, take a stand, again, it's kind of created an awkward situation because people are like, hey, you know, if these athletes feel so strongly about human rights, then why don't they speak up? Why don't they protest at the Olympics? And you would think that because they feel so strongly about this stuff, you would think that they would protest. However, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, says differently, right? She actually came out and told the athletes, do not speak out, right? Don't speak up at the Olympics in China. Take a look.
As I say, as I wish the athletes well, I do not encourage them to speak out against the Chinese government there because I fear for their safety if they do.
Wow. Incredible stuff, right? Incredible, right? These are the same group of people that encourage athletes all during 2020 after the George Floyd incident to speak out. Okay, speak out against injustice. Injustice anywhere is unacceptable, right? This is what they said. People like Nancy Pelosi, she believed it so much that she took a knee like Colin Kaepernick. She kneeled like Kaepernick while wearing dashikis and all the other types of stuff, right? Nancy Pelosi and people like her on the left, the Democrats, were all for this, right? They was all for speaking out against so-called injustice when it comes to, you know, what's going on in the United States. Now, when it comes to China, Nancy Pelosi sounds like a right-winger, right? She sounds like somebody on Fox News. Hey, you guys just need to shut up and dribble. Okay, you didn't go there to protest. Your job is to play your sport. Do your job as an athlete, right? You're not an activist. You're an athlete. That's basically what she's saying in a nutshell, right? And she's saying that, well, she's saying this because she doesn't want athletes to get hurt. And I'm sitting here like, that is the most pathetic, weakest thing I've ever seen in my life. Because, again, first and foremost, again, you're a hypocrite. You tell people to speak out here in the United States, but not in another country that actually have, like, legitimate human rights violations going on, right? We're talking about concentration camps, okay, and potential genocide. That's what we're talking about, okay? But you don't want to speak up about that. But you'll speak up about an exaggerated problem here in the United States. But when it comes to Daddy China, silence, right? Silence, okay? Saying, oh, well, I don't want these athletes to get hurt. And I'm like, if China puts one finger on our athletes, you need to be coming out here saying there will be consequences, right? There will be severe consequences for China trying to harm our athletes for speaking out during the Olympics. Now, if speaking out at the Olympics is not allowed, I feel like there is like a gray area here in regards to being at a protest at the Olympics. It is the Olympic Committee's job to punish those athletes for that. not China's job. So if China want to try something, then hey, what you need to be saying is that we're going to clap back, right? That's what you need to be saying, okay? Not sitting here talking about, well, what if China does something to our athletes? I don't want you to get hurt. Again, that's weak. It's weak. I'm so sick and tired of these politicians, these athletes, these Hollywood actors coming out here trying to woke virtue signal and lecture me about the so-called injustices going on in the United States. But when it comes to Daddy China, all these people are silent. They have nothing to say whatsoever. Okay? They have not one thing to say. And they ain't want to sit here talking about saying, I'm just scared of China, what China might do. That shit weak. Right? I don't want to hear that. You supposed to be an activist. So go be an activist in China. Okay? But none of them will do it. What Nancy Pelosi saying was so hypocritical, right? That even Al Sharpton had to come out here and voice his disagreement with what she was saying, as he basically argues that we should not be normalizing and ignoring genocide. Take a look.
And I appreciate that because it's real, but I respectfully disagree with the speaker here, and I usually am supportive of her, because you cannot normalize what they're doing in China. Right. And to go there and act like all is well is to normalize some very brutal behavior. I think that it would be incumbent on them to say, this is not the way the world ought to be functioning. And I think we do it at home. Certainly we're raising questions right now with the NFL with this new lawsuit that many of us are supporting. So we're supposed to leave our principles of protest at the when we check in at customs? I don't think so. We need to let China know you live in a world that human rights is non-negotiable.
Yeah, so that's probably the first time I've ever agreed with Al Sharpton on anything, right? But what he's saying here, I think is consistent with what the left has shown us that they're supposed to care about for the last 2 or 3 years, right? They're supposed to care about injustice. But politicians aren't the only people that are chiming in on the Olympics in China. You also have some woke sports journalists who are also chiming in. Even though they don't really want to chime in, they really want to ignore the human rights issues going on in China. So much so that woke journalists like J.A. Adande went as far as to basically say that we shouldn't worry about what's going on in China as long as we have a police brutality and voting rights issue going on here in the United States. Take a look.
With genocide and human rights violations in the Tibet region and against Uyghurs in China, the International Olympic Committee chose Beijing while stating it is committed to human rights. Today's opening ceremony, which again you will see tonight, featured a lighting of the torch by 2 members of the Chinese Olympic team, one of which is Uyghur. J.A. Adande, as a fan and then as a reporter, how do you reconcile enjoying this competition while also considering everything I just said?
I think it's standard in sports right now. You have to have a cognitive dissonance. You need to compartmentalize. We've never had a more enjoyable NFL playoffs in this country, and we've never had more people watching the playoffs. And yet it goes on amid the ongoing allegations against Dan Snyder, owner of the Washington football team, and the continuous concussion concerns, and now the concerns about diversity and the allegations and the questions about competitive integrity, even all of that. And yet we're still enjoying the games. And who are we to criticize China's human rights records when we have ongoing attacks by the agents of the state against unarmed citizens, and we've got assaults on the voting rights of our people of color in various states in this country? So sports, I think it is possible, and it's necessary more than ever to just shut everything out if you are to enjoy the actual games themselves.
All right, guys. So I just want you to understand how insane of a take that was. Okay, I want you to understand, in no uncertain terms, this guy, who's a paid sports journalist, is basically comparing alleged police brutality and the so-called attack on voting rights, basically the GOP election integrity bills here in the United States, to genocide, right? That's what he's doing. And concentration camps as well, right? So he's saying that we can't talk, we can't say anything as Americans about genocide and concentration camps in China, right? Or alleged genocide and concentration camps. We can't say anything about that because here in the United States, 20 or 30 unarmed black men are killed by police per year. A majority of situations are justified, right? Because of that, we can't speak out about that, right? Because we have voter ID laws, Okay, a issue that an overwhelming majority of Americans agree with, right? Using the ID to vote. Yeah, we have no room to talk about China, right? We have no room to talk about China. And guys, this is what happens when hypocrisy is right in front of your face, right? When you see the hypocrisy that these athletes have created by standing up for so-called social justice issues here in the United States, but when it comes to China, staying silent, right? When you're faced with that hypocrisy, what you do is that you deflect and you say, well, you know, the U.S. have their own human rights issues, right? They have their own human rights issues. Again, not genocide, okay? We don't have that going on here in the United States, and we don't have concentration camps, okay? We don't have that. But yeah. According to J.A. Adande, his logic is that, well, those two things are equivalent, right? That's what he's saying. So next time an athlete protests in the United States over so-called human rights issues in the United States, I expect this guy to come out here and say, nah, y'all shouldn't be doing that, right? You just need to shut up and dribble. Why are you protesting about what's going on in the United States when this stuff is going on around the world, right? It's going on around the world, so why should you just protest at these games? Again, I find it hilarious how these woke revolutionaries and these Democrats all of a sudden become conservatives and Republicans when it comes to athletes speaking out at the Olympics in China, right? When it comes to China, all of a sudden these people are just flat out conservatives, right? Athletes should be athletes. They're not activists. They're not protesters. They're not any of that. They're to play a game. So play the game and shut up, okay? That's what they're saying. Again, it is amazing how all of a sudden the role of an athlete changes when they go to another country. But it's cool to do that here in the United States, right? And if you criticize athletes for protesting in the United States, you're a bigot, right? You're a bigot. You're a racist, okay? That's what they characterize you as. But hey, you know, we all know what's going on here. You got to bow down to the CCP, right? You got to bow down to Daddy China. And that not just only applies to the politicians, but it also applies to the woke journalists, the woke athletes like LeBron James, the woke companies like Nike that are all in bed with China. All of them. They're all in bed with China. So therefore, again, you got to make sure that you don't upset your pimp, right? You got to make sure you don't upset your pimp, okay? Or you might get slapped. As Nancy Pelosi basically alluded to when she told us how she was so afraid that the athletes might get harmed or hurt by China, right? Just for speaking out, okay? Kind of crazy. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.